Hi, everyone. Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us today for what is a very exciting and impactful session, our eighth in the Sochology Eduseries. My name is Mohamed, and I'm joined by my co-host Seth. Just some housekeeping before we start. So, essentially, I'd love everyone to send in your questions via chat. So, if you're watching us on LinkedIn, send us a comment and send us a question. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can dial down a comment over there, and we'll bring these questions up right at the end of the session once our guest has done speaking. So, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to Seth. Seth, over to you.
Today's topic is one that novice and veteran product managers alike think about all the time, and that's how to be a great product manager. Not just good enough, absolutely great. What are some traits and characteristics that embody a great PM, and how can we put those into practice to take our craft to the next level? To speak to that topic, we're absolutely honored to have Christian Idiodi join us today. Christian has over 15 years of product leadership experience. In addition to developing enterprise and consumer products at organizations such as Career Builder, PayPal, Etsy, Starbucks, and Dell, he has also built and led high performance product teams. He's currently a partner at Silicon Valley Product Group and teaches product management and innovation at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. Christian, welcome to Sochology, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today in helping us understand how to be great PMs based on your vast experience. So now I'll turn it over to you, Christian, and take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for having me today. I'm really glad to have a conversation on the role of product management and what it truly means to be a great product manager. I think what would be helpful to start our conversation is actually talk a little about my career and how I got into product management. The reason I want to do this is because I want to kind of make it okay for anybody who is on this call today that wants to be a product manager to kind of understand the normal career path that everybody does in getting into product management. For most people, it happens by accident. For others, they evolve into the role, or they are challenged into doing more in a job and they discover product management. I have not met very many product managers that actually have a degree in product management. Interestingly enough, I was going to be a medical doctor. I was pre-med in college, and I decided to take a year off from starting medical school to travel the world. And I got broke traveling and stuck in Southeast Asia, and so I had to make my way back to San Francisco. I actually started my career while waiting for medical school in sales. I was doing door-to-door sales, and I actually did very well in sales. And I thought, why am I going to go to medical schools? I should become a salesperson. And I joined a company that in sales, working in account management. And the company said, look, we have a competition where anybody could submit an idea. And if you win the competition, you get to run a business. You get $1 million of funding to run the business. I didn't really have an idea, but I figured I will learn more about the company, the industry, learn more about the customers, and try to understand if I could come up with an idea. I actually won this competition at like 22 years old, and I had a check for $1 million to run a business, to build a technology business. I had no clue what I was doing. I was panicking every single day, but I started to try to learn, what does it take to go from an idea into building a company or a business, or building a product that people actually love and care for. And I grew that business significantly over the next couple of months into over $10 million in ARR. I had another idea as I was going through this, and I submitted it to the competition. And I won again, and the leader said, well, why should we wait for a competition for you to share your ideas? Why don't you just manage our innovation budget? Now, there was not a formal discipline for product management, 18, 20 years ago. This was some form of innovation management. So I actually will come up with an idea and just try it out. And this was what I was doing. I failed woefully at the next 17 or 18 ideas that I came from. And by failure, I mean extremely failing at any of the ideas. Nobody wanted anything I was putting out there. And I started to say, well, hold up here. I don't want was my first idea successful? And my first two ideas, were they successful because of luck? How do people consistently and constantly go from coming up with a good idea to building something that customers will love and customers will cherish? And I really started to become a student, not just of building products, but of building great products well consistently. And I said, well, what are some of the common patterns? What was I doing in the first two ideas that made me successful? And why am I failing constantly now? And I started to learn a bunch about, I wasn't spending time with customers. I was disconnected from the engineers. I made assumptions. The real root of my success actually came because in the beginning, I did not know. And I knew I did not know anything. And I was learning and trying to validate what I did know or what I didn't know. Anyway, I have not had a product failure since then. I have built over 200 products in my product career. I ended up doing a startup. I ended up becoming the head of product at a company, becoming a product executive, transforming several companies into working on a modern product pattern, and had a successful product management career. And so today I'm sharing this story because I want to normalize for people that said, well, do I go learn about product? How do I become a great product manager? Most product managers in today's world have actually learned the discipline from great product leaders. Many product managers today have been thrown into this job without any formal training, any formal expectation. This has been an undefined role in so many ways. So I want to start my conversation today by talking about why we even care about product management. In many ways, this manager job seems to have come out of nowhere, but its growth and demand over time, there's been a lot of ambiguity about what it means. That has been consistent. If you think about the history of product management, you had brand men in consumer packaged goods that's evolved from the 30s to the 50s over time. But the pressing demand for it, the pressing driver for it has actually been in this idea of digital disruption. This idea that when Mark Andreessen wrote an article called Software is Eating the World, we are seeing a couple of patterns that are consistently true. First, we're seeing the pace of innovation being faster than ever. If you watched kids shows years ago in the 80s, you saw things like, oh, we will have cars that drive themselves, or people that go to Mars, or we're flying up in space. You think to yourself, well, this will happen 50 years from now, or 100 years from now. But these things are happening before our very eyes. The previous unimaginable things are happening today. AI, machine learning, that some of the best minds in the world are being beat by technology. We're seeing that speed and agility have become critical to survive, critical for companies to thrive. You think about companies that have gone bankrupt, out of business over the last couple of years. What has taken over? The retail stores, the gym. This has been technology, tech companies, that immersion, right? If you ask yourself, what are the best performing stocks in the world? You find certain things to be consistently true about those. Many of them are tech companies or pharma companies because they are innovating. Now, what's also changing with all of this is the role of technology. If you ask anybody in the world, let's get a hotel, they'll probably pull out their phone. Let's get a taxi, they'll probably pull out their phone. Hey, let's buy a plane ticket, they'll probably pull out their phone. Technology has become part of what people expect, but the role of technology, even with this narrative, is still underscored in many companies. Many companies will see technology as a cost center, as an expense. So they fund projects, they call it IT. There's something called the business, how we make money, how we go about operating today, and there's something called technology, IT people. They exist to serve our needs. Truly, the best companies in the world don't work this way because they recognize what I have talked about with digital disruption. They recognize what I've talked about with the role of technology. In the best companies of the world, technology is the business. It is how we solve problems. And you want to solve these problems in a way that your customers will love the solution and in a way that works for your business. Technology is the enabler for how we solve problems. It powers the products and the services we provide to people. At this core is what has led to the demand and evolution of this discipline of product management. Because a product is something created to solve a problem in a meaningful way. This is what we mean by value. When you solve a problem in a meaningful way, you create value. Now, I'm calling this out because I want to make sure I am clear talking about product manager and the role of product manager. And the reason I'm going through this evolution is because I want people to understand what the role is and what the role isn't before I talk about what it means to be good in the role. When you think about the evolution of product management and you go back to my story of how companies use technology, when technology was a cost center, business versus technology, what do companies do? They fund projects. We want to build a new website. This is a project. The business is going to give technology teams money to build a new website. The business will assign a project manager to oversee how this money is spent, to oversee the scope of this project and the delivery of this project. In this role here, the project manager is just ensuring the delivery of the project within the time, budget, and scope. Project managers are not product managers. Their job is to enable the delivery of a project. When companies started to shift how they build things in a waterfall model, they said, well, the business says we want to build a website. The very first obvious question for the technology teams is what? What do you want in your website? And so the technology teams came up with the role of a business analyst, whose job was to gather the requirements. What are the business requirements? And so I write the business requirement documents. What are the technical requirements, the marketing requirements, the product requirements? You see? So the job of the analyst was to gather requirements and write requirements because somebody needed to communicate what the business wanted to the technology teams. Are you with me on the evolution here? All of this, not a product manager. When companies started to make the shift in changing how they build from this waterfall way of working, where it cascades down from the business to technology to a more agile way of working. Well, we don't have a business analyst. We have a product owner in an agile team. But they didn't really change what they did. The product owner's job now was still to gather requirements from the business analyst. Because the business was still, like the business analyst, because the business was still telling the technology teams what to build. I want to be very clear up front. The job of a modern product manager is not to gather requirements. It's not to manage the delivery of the project. The job of the modern product manager is to solve the problem. Remember, the business says, we want a website. The question here is, why do we want a website? Well, we believe if we get a new website, we will get more customers. Well, what if we built the website, but we did not get more customers? You've delivered the solution, but the problem still exists. So the job of the modern product manager is to solve the problem. You want more customers. Getting a new website is just one way of getting more customers. There may be other ways. Our job is to discover the best way to get us more customers. So what you have in a project team, if a company works in that way, is you do have project managers. What you have in a delivery team is you may have business analysts or product owners. If you work in a future team where you're given a list of features and projects to go deliver, you probably still have a product owner. But in an empowered product team, you are given problems to solve, not features to build. And it's up to you to discover, design, validate, test, and deliver a solution to that problem. You're measured on solving the problem. This, my friends, is where you need a product manager. So let's talk about product manager as a job. Leah Hickman, who is a partner with us at SVPG, she ran product at Adobe and InVision. She makes this argument that product managers are intellectually curious people. They are naturally collaborative people. Plenty of grit and perseverance. They can push through things here. Marissa Mayer of Google and then Yahoo, she said, I look for very smart people that love to solve problems. Steve Jobs would say, I look for smart, creative people. The folks at Google, I look for smart people who love to get things done. Everybody wants smart people in this role. Well, I'm like, why do they want smart people? Yeah, it's often because of the responsibility of a product manager. The product manager is responsible for value. Wow. Is this worth doing? Is this the right thing to do? If we do it, will people choose it? If we do it, will people use it? If we do it, will people buy it? They are also responsible for viability. Does it work for our business? Will our stakeholders support it? Can we sell it? Can we market it? Are you seeing? They are responsible for these two key aspects of the things we decide to do. Is this the right solution, the best solution to the problem? And we know that because people will buy it or people will choose it. We know that because within the constraints of our environment, we can answer the question, it works for our business, we will make money on it, we'll be profitable, we can market it and sell it. So this is why we hold them ultimately responsible for results. People often joke, when everything goes well, it's a team effort. When things go poorly, we blame the product manager. Now remember, in this modern product organization, the product manager is also the product owner. A product owner is a role on an agile team. Product manager is the job. Product ownership is maybe 5-10% of the job of a product manager. It's not the core job. Communicating the rituals of agile, managing the backlog, 5 to 10% of the job. Because the core of the job is what? Solving the problem with the team. Not just about communicating what needs to be built. It's about solving the problem. This role got a lot of attention in the 80s and the 90s because many investors were giving money to companies. And the companies say, what are you going to do with the money we're going to give you? Say, we're going to build our product or build our solution. And then there was this question of who is controlling what gets built? Who is determining the decisions we make about what gets built? Who do we hold accountable to that? This is what we often call the product manager. So, what does a product manager contribute to a team? I want to be clear about the job and the contribution of the job, and then we'll talk about the traits of what makes it good. The first thing a product manager contributes is a deep knowledge of the customer. To be clear about this, think about what the job of the team is. To solve a problem. Now, you're not just solving a problem. We have standards or expectations of how you solve the problem. You have to solve the problem in a way that your customers will love the solution, and also in a way that works for your business. How would you know how to create a solution that your customers will love if you do not know your customers? If you're not the expert on your users and your customers in your business, you simply have to be the go-to person in your company. Because remember, if we say, how do we make money here? By getting more customers to buy, by retaining customers. If you're not the expert on the people we're solving a problem for, how would you come up with a good solution to those things? Honestly, I don't think many product managers spend enough time on this. This is the first thing you bring to the team. Quite frankly, you are not very effective without it. People ask me, how much of a knowledge of the customer do I have to have? I was joining a company once, and I was going to be the head of product. This company helped people find a job, their first job, maybe after college, an hourly job working at a gas station or a fueling station or at a grocery store or at a fast food restaurant. And I'm saying to myself, I cannot even remember the last time I had a job like that. I'm very disconnected from the customer. So what did I do on my first day at the job? I didn't go to the office. I didn't meet my team. I went to an unemployment office because those were the people there looking for jobs. That's where my customers will be hanging out. I started talking to people. Stumbled upon a young man named Brad. I said, Brad, what are you doing here? He said, I lost my job a couple of weeks ago. I'm here to collect unemployment benefits, but I'm actively looking for a new job. I said, oh, Brad, I just joined the company. They claim to help people find new jobs. I would love to spend some time with you learning about how you find a job. This doesn't mean I called Brad up the next morning. I sent him a survey. No, I woke up 7 o'clock. I was at Brad's house. Brad comes out of the shower and said, I'm right here. I watched Brad go to his neighbor's house because he didn't have internet in his house to apply for jobs. I followed Brad to every single job interview that he had. When he comes out of the interview, we recap. Every day I'm up at 7 and with Brad all the way to 5. See, 2 weeks later, Brad finds a part-time job. He says, I said, maybe I'm done with this. He's found a job. He said, well, this job doesn't cover all of my expenses. I say, wow, is this what it means to be underemployed? Your income doesn't cover your expenses. I said, now what? He said, I'm still looking for a new job. And so I keep going. It's almost 90 days I'm spending with him to find a job. Why am I doing this? Because I'm joining a company that is going to use technology to help millions of people find a job. If I don't understand what it takes for one person to find a job, what do I think I'm doing here? 90 days before Brad finds a full-time meaningful job, before I go back to the office, the first day I go to the office, I bring him with me. I introduced him to the company. I said, I've been spending my time learning about our customers, and everybody has to do this every day from now on. Because you're not solving a problem for ourselves, we're doing it on behalf of customers. And in return, we get the benefits of revenue, loyalty, engagement, these things that drive our business and profit. This is what I mean by deep understanding of the customer. This is core of what it means to be a great product manager. As a product manager, you also have to contribute a deep knowledge of the data. I tell people, look, you can make many decisions as a product manager if it's backed by customer insights and by data. In the absence of this is what I call a OPO, one person's opinion. It's just an opinion. Product managers, you need to understand user analytics, what people are doing on your product. You need to understand sales data, what people are buying, what's the return cycle, average transaction value. You also need to understand the historical trends, what people did last time, what are they doing this year, how things change over time. You need to be on top of this because this is what informs your decision on what we do, on the best thing to do. You also have to have a deep knowledge of the business. My goodness, remember what I said the job of the team is: solve a problem in a way your customers love, yet work for your business. How would you know it works for your business if you don't know your business? You've probably heard people say this over and over again. The product manager is the CEO of their product. Don't get me wrong. You are not CEO of anything. Try doing some CEO things. You realize you have no power. I always joke with product managers, you're the opposite of Spider-Man. Because what do we say with Spider-Man? Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. But product people, with great responsibility comes no power. This is kind of the job. You're leading by influence. The reason people say product manager is like the CEO of the product. Think about a CEO at the company. The CEO knows how everything kind of works in a company. They don't have to be the expert on everything, but they kind of know who to go to. I have a question on our budget. They can go to the CFO. We have a marketing thing, a brand thing. We go to the marketing person. So the product manager does this on the team. They play that role because nobody else on the team is going to do this for you. You have to understand how we make money, how we make profit, what works for the business, legal, finance, constraints, regulatory policy, stakeholders. You have to have relationships with those people. You have to understand who to go to for questions. How are we going to market these things? Truly, you have to understand how the business works because you want to solve a problem in a way that works for the business. You also have to have a deep understanding of your industry, because this is the domain in which you play. You want to understand the trends that are affecting your industry, the consumerization of the enterprise, machine learning and AI, big data, VR, whatever it is, all of this technology. Why? Because innovation is not just a factor of the number of attempts you have, but understanding what is just now possible. Where is the industry going? What are the trends? This will drive the behaviors, the choices you make. You want to know what your competitors are doing. Please don't go copying your competitors. It may not be working what your competitors are doing, but you want to understand the problems they are solving and if they are relevant to your customers. Finally, you have to have a deep knowledge of your product. This one might seem very obvious to people. The job is called product manager. Manage your product. Don't be the person that somebody says, did you know your product does this? And you're surprised. Tell me more. You want to be the expert on your own product. Even if you did not build it in the beginning, go find the people that did, that have been there long enough. What are the use cases? Why did we make these choices in the product? Why is this in here? Is it still the right product to solve the problem? You sunset your product. You remove it from market, because your job as a product manager is not about just keeping the product alive. It's about ensuring that the product is still the best solution to the problems you set out to solve. If it's not, you can sunset it. Build something else. That's the job. Feels like a hard job. Is why people like Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz will always make this argument that there are two kinds of product managers: successful product managers and former product managers. Now, don't get this wrong. He's not just saying, yes, it's a hard job and people do not make it. But in Silicon Valley today, a product manager is the number one career path for somebody to become a CEO of a company, to become a founder or co-founder of a startup. See, for the last 3 years, it's become the number one sought after position for Ivy League graduates. It used to be investment banker. Now the most sought out position is a product manager. These people are entrepreneurial. It's why companies like Google or Atlassian or Instacart, some of these companies, they spend 2 years in an associate product management program teaching product managers. I tell this to people: if you cannot see a product manager as the next CEO, the next senior leader of a company, you probably don't have the right people. This is not a sport for junior people. If you think about it, nobody says, well, my problem is less important than the other problems. Let's put somebody that doesn't know anything about the company or the customers to do it. You want people that are competent in your customer, your data, your business, your industry, and the product to make a decision on what we do. Now, what are some of the skills and techniques a good product manager brings to the table? Right? Remember, your job is to work with the team to do these things. So there are some process skills and techniques that are important. First is discovery. What is discovery? Discovery is a sum of all of the experiments, techniques, prototypes, things we do to discover a solution. Product managers have to get comfortable with being able to do discovery, to work with people to discover a solution. There are many techniques we use here in framing our work, in planning our discovery, in prototyping, in testing value, testing usability, testing viability, testing technology. The whole purpose of discovery is to tackle the risk in the choices we make. Product managers have to get good at using techniques to quickly and inexpensively answer the questions. Is this the right thing to do? And if we do it, will people buy it? Will people use it? Can we build it? And does it work for our business? In some cases, the product manager has to get good at optimizing what we currently have to capture the value. We've built something. We need to iterate on it to capture the value of our market. They also have to be able to support delivery. Remember, the job is 80% discovery, 20% delivery. To be clear about that, you're spending 80% of your time determining what we're going to do. and 20% of your time supporting the delivery of that. Important to know, what does that look like tactically? I tell people, ask me, no more than 1 hour a day supporting delivery. That includes your stand-ups, yourself. The best thing you can do for your team is to make a good decision on what we are going to do with evidence, and then to clearly describe what we build as a result of it. You're supporting the development of the product. These are the core skills and techniques product people have to be good at. The job is one that requires you to work with people. So there are a couple of people skills you need to be good at that make a great product manager. I always call out team collaboration, because this is a team sport. Solving a problem is a team sport. Remember, you've changed the game from delivering a project where you needed a project manager to doing what? To solving a problem. Solving a problem in a modern technology company requires that you can work with a designer who tackles the risk of, does this work the way we expect it to work? Can people use it? Do we capture the value in a meaningful way? Designers do that. You work with engineers who translate the business needs into products, that ask the question, can we build it? What's the best way to build it? Do we have time to build it? What are the risks involved in building it? You have to work collaboratively with them to solve the problem. When a business puts a solution out, it has to protect its revenue, protect its brand, its reputation, protect its fellow employees. Stakeholders care about all of these things. There are constraints in the environment we're in. We just can't build things. It's easy to build things that customers will love, but how do we make sure it works for our business? Stakeholders are part of this. Product people have to get good at working with stakeholders, understanding their needs, validating and testing that it works for our business with them. The job also requires us to get good at evangelism, telling the story of the changes we are going to be making in the world as a result of our story, sharing a vision of our work, the strategies of how we are going to do it, enabling the organization to support that change. The product manager takes on some form of a leadership role, not because they are a special, unequal candidate to other people on the team, but because they are responsible for value. Is this even worth doing? Nobody wants to work on things that people don't care about. They don't want to work on things that will not solve the problem. They don't want to work on the wrong things. So the product manager has to take on the mantle of determining value and viability, because value is the most important thing to establish. It is overlooked in many companies because it's assumed. We get a roadmap and somebody says, build this. You're saying, well, that person is smart, so value is assumed. In an empowered team, it is the core job of the product manager to ensure that whatever we build is worth building. When people say, okay, how do you describe what a product manager does? It's often a very hard question. I used to say, you're like a superhero. You fly all over the world and you're looking for problems, and then you swoop in and you solve the problem. The product manager is everything to the team, gets no credit around it. So there are all of these influences. I used to start my career in the beginning and describe to my kids, well, I create value for companies by creating value for their customers. But I want to be clear about how I will say a great product manager works. You work collaboratively with talented people to discover solutions on behalf of customers in a way that works for your business. That's the job. To solve a problem in a meaningful way that customers will be delighted, and in a way that your business will also love. Okay. So I had some examples around this, but I'm happy to talk about them in questions. I want to talk about the challenges of modern product management in here and some of the other traits here before we take some questions here. while this discipline is evolving, it's been undefined in some ways, it's been poorly defined in other ways. There are some challenges I want to call out here that I think have made it very difficult for many product managers to do good work in their companies. The first, I think, comes from poor product leadership. And it's very hard to solve a problem without an understanding of where we are going, our vision. It's very hard to solve a problem without an understanding of how we plan to get to that vision. And without clarity about what is important right now and why it is important. We call this in our world strategic context. Without context, many companies lead their teams by control. Do this, you must do this. And yes, why we do it? You must do it because I said so. The best product teams in the world, they get context in the form of a product vision. They get context in the form of a product strategy. They get clear objectives. What are clear objectives? Problems to solve. They could be business problems or product problems or customer problems. Because if you're not given a problem to solve, if you're told what to do, you're not a product manager. You are a project manager or a product owner or a backlog administrator. So without clarity of the problems you're there to solve and why, which is the context, it's very hard to do a product manager job. There are also some anti-patterns that I see in many companies. The first is when your executives or your sales teams bring the requirements. They are the ones coming to tell you what to do, right? This often happens because the product manager is not the expert in the customer. Is not the expert in the business. So somebody can say to you, hold up here. I know the customer better than you. I know the business better than you. So I should tell you what they want. So the way you tackle this is by elevating the discipline of product management, by becoming the expert in your customer and your business. Because if you're the expert in your customers, then the business will turn to you to solve customer problems. 2 people, 1 role. I see this a lot. There's a company that might have a product manager and a product owner. Or the manager of product managers is becoming the product manager too. 2 people are fighting for it. If you have somebody this is the business person and this is the technology person, that's essentially waterfall. That's handoffs. Somebody is telling somebody else what it is. The job of the product manager is to be both the business and technology in one person. They understand the business, they understand the technology side, so they can make a good decision on what works for both. This is a hard job. When I see a product manager, one person, playing 2 roles or many roles. The product manager is the designer. The product manager is the project manager. The product manager is the delivery person. The product manager is the product marketing person. Product management is about discovery. Project management, product marketing management, those things are about delivery. Discovery and delivery is the same as urgent versus important. Urgent will always win. This is why the single biggest discipline for product managers that I advocate is time management. Time management. So many product managers stuck in meetings all day. Meeting about meetings, thinking about meetings, preparing for meetings. Meetings is not product manager meant. If it's not meetings, you know what the second thing is? Email. If it's not email, you know what the next thing is? Chat, Slack, Hangouts, Skype, whatever it is. Ask yourself the question, is most of my work proactive versus reactive? Am I constantly working on urgent versus important? Do I feel like I'm a firefighter all the time, running around putting out fires? This you need, you need, or are you a physician, a doctor, diagnosing problems and coming up with solutions to them? Product management versus project management. An empowered product team is also something I see. Remember, in a delivery team, a project team, in a future team, you probably don't need a product manager because you're just doing something somebody else wants. And when people are unhappy with the results, it's because they did not tell you what problem you're trying to solve. For me, one of the biggest opportunities in our discipline is coaching product managers. I mentioned this before. I think the last stat I read was like 74% of product managers are self-taught. They taught themselves product management. This may feel cool to many people, like, yeah, they're entrepreneurial, they're self-driven, but think about it. How many of you will go to a self-taught dentist or a doctor that says to you, I just learned how to do heart surgery on YouTube. Open up your heart. This is scary. So we need people to coach people how to be good product managers. So it's a big product leadership opportunity. So many people ask me, are there classes that I can take to be a product manager, or are there things I can take to get better at product management? I mentioned before, the best product managers I have met learned from great product leaders. But some of the classes that I send my people to, I send my teams to an introduction to computer programming, coding 101, computer science. Please note, I'm not asking you to become an engineer or become technical. You're not an engineer. I'm asking you to go take a basic introductory course on computer programming and computer science. Why? Because if you think about your job as a product manager, you work with engineers every day. They have to translate all of the things you're saying into meaningful working software. When you take a basic class like this, I'm talking basic class on computer programming, you start to have a better appreciation of what engineers do. It improves your empathy for engineers. It improves your communication to engineers. Are you seeing? It also improves how you work with them. You stop saying things like, it's just a button, build it next week. That should be easy. You start to have that appreciation. So the more you understand what engineers do, the better your relationships, the better your collaboration. Also, I tell people, take an introductory class in business acumen, accounting, finance, accounting 101. Why? Because you may be asked to solve a business problem, like improve profit. Or, if you cannot read a P&L, read a balance sheet, your CFO says to you, improve EBITDA. You say, what does EBITDA mean? You see, you have to be comfortable with some of these business things because you may be asked to solve those problems. I also love an introduction to statistics or business analytics because these are all foundational aspects today for machine learning or AI work, and you want to be comfortable with that. You can even read books on it. There's a book called Lean Analytics by Alistair Crowell. Great book on data. So you don't have to take a class. You can read about some of these things to get better. I always send my product managers to the most popular class on the internet. It's called The Science of Well-Being. It's a Yale class. It's popular on Coursera. It's free every couple of months. Because why? Because product is hard. Why? Because time management, finding work-life balance, those things are super important for a healthy product press. And so I want you to be able to balance and make choices about your work. When I think about the traits of great product managers that I've worked with, I call out a couple of things that I find to be consistently true. These people are empathetic. These people have high emotional intelligence. They can recognize that in the dynamic of solving a problem on behalf of a customer within a company, that many problems are people problems. And they have a deep understanding of the customer, a deep understanding of the people in an organization, the dynamics that affect them. They can make better choices on those solutions. These people are good in managing relationships. Think about it. Customers, you want more every year. You have a growing infinite number of customers you have to support. And you have stakeholders that are constantly screaming at you all the time. Nobody says to you, build this in 3 months. They want it now. So they are very good at managing relationships, very good at managing expectations, very good at supporting the interactions that lead to people working together to solve a problem, working with their team. They have great self-awareness. It's also part of emotional intelligence. It's part of competence. It's not about you knowing all the things, but knowing when to say, I need help. I don't know this. I'm not sure. You build trust in that vulnerability. They can manage themselves, manage their time to be able to build their skills, but pull in people that they need to solve the problem. At the core of what this job is problem solving. People ask me today, I'm not a product manager. How do I become one? You know what I say to them? I say, well, find a problem you're passionate about that you want to, and just start solving it. That's the muscle of product management, working with people to solve problems. You don't need permission. There are problems in your house, problems on the wall. Go volunteer at a non-for-profit. Go help people. The muscle of product management is a collaborative problem-solving muscle. Before you go work for Google and you're lifting 500 pounds or kilograms of weight, get comfortable at least lifting 5 pounds or 5 kilograms by solving problems. Steve Jobs makes this argument that we don't hire smart people. Remember, everybody wants a smart person in product management to tell them what to do. We hire smart people to tell us what's possible. This is what a great product manager brings to the table. Thank you all for the gifts of your time today and your attention. I always appreciate the community of product people around the world, people that have supported our work. If you do not know our work, the Silicon Valley Product Group, we are really people that have built products around the world. We've been product leaders. We've supported many companies around the world along their product journey. Please visit our website, svpg.com, to learn more about our work around the world. You can follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter if you need to kind of hear more about this. But at this time here, I'm super grateful for everybody that has stayed along this journey today. I will open it up for questions. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christian. That was super enlightening, and there's quite a few questions that we have. So I think starting off, probably it segues pretty nicely with the last thing that you said, which was, people ask you a lot, how do you start, becoming a product manager? I think something that a lot of people, including Dennis here, struggle with is finding resources, right? You're doing, maybe you're already in a position somewhere, in a role somewhere, and you kind of want to transition into product management. While you're doing that, you want to look at some resources, maybe study about it, maybe videos, maybe free courses. So Dennis here asks, are there any free resources that you would recommend that someone can get to learn and be conversant in product management?
Yeah. So we've talked about, if you go to our website, svpg.com, we've written several books on the topic. Inspired is really our book on how to be a product manager. Empowered is our book on product leadership. We set the tone, and in our work, we've seen how the best companies work. So I want to be clear. We're not describing a product manager at any company. We're describing what the best product managers at Google, Amazon, Netflix, those kinds of companies look like. And that's important for you to understand that there's a difference between how the best companies work and how the rest do it. So being a great product manager is understanding what that role is. So we have a great newsletter. You can subscribe to that. We share articles around the discipline. It is free and available to you. There are many product communities. I've said to you before, the best product leaders, good product managers have actually learned from great product leaders. So there are many great people around it that understand this discipline, have worked at these companies. Follow them, follow their thoughts around this topic. And articles that they share about what they've seen work and what doesn't work. And I think it'll be helpful.
Awesome. Well, I know of a few people in our community who actually have inspired and empowered on their bookshelves all the time. They sometimes even, have them right next to their holy books as well. So I can attest to the value that these books have, definitely. We have another question from Furkan. I think this is something that you alluded to as well in your talk, which is, the pressure of delivery, right? There's constantly this pressure to create value, create, output from a product manager. So Furkan here asks, many product managers complain that they want to do all of the things that you talked about, but the pressure to deliver is so high, and they need to answer to CXOs, sales, etc. When is stuff being shipped? What is being shipped? That they spend most of their time just stuck in delivery. How can product managers take control of this narrative and this situation and take it back to where it needs to be?
Yeah, great question. And in some ways, this is a reflection of your operating model. Because, you may be in a delivery-like team or a future-like team. You've been given things to go build and deliver. And so there is pressure on when are we going to get the things we've given you to go deliver. We've given you a roadmap. Some leader has told us we're going to get this in 3 months and we want this now, and our customers are waiting and we all expect this. Now, in this role here, you're not truly in a product management role because you're measured on delivering things than on what? That's output, than on why we're doing it. But here's my favorite technique for becoming a product manager. At the very beginning, when you're given all these things to do, you say, well, I want to make sure I succeed when we do these things. Why do we want to do these things? What problem do we want to solve? And how will we measure success? Because is success building these things and shipping it? Or is success what we will gain when we do it? You see, if they say we want this shipped and we want this built, you say, well, I want to make sure I do it very well. Is success just doing it? Or is success the fact that if we do it, we will get more revenue? Is success that we will get customer retention? We will get profit? If success is really profit, then my job is to discover the best thing that gives us profit. What if I found something that gives us 50% more profit than this other idea right now? Are you saying to me I shouldn't do it? You see? So what you're doing is you're trying to make sure that you focus on the problem that we really want to solve, or the outcome that we really want. When you focus on the outcome and you're measured on the outcome, you start to elevate some of the pressure on the output, the delivery. Because you're saying to the business, look, it's not about just delivering this thing, it's about solving the problem. And so I just don't want to go about checking the box. I built you stuff. I could build you a lot of things that don't work. It's about solving the problem. And so to do a good job, I need to understand what the outcome is and how we measure success. And that's the tone I take with leaders. Remember, it's a journey because it's a trust dynamic. If I told you the outcome is revenue, but you don't do anything to help me, then I might as well just keep pushing you on shipping things because at least I'm going to get something and I hope it works. So you have to have the skills to, if I tell you what the problem is, you have to have the skills to work with people to solve the problem and get their outcomes. Because if they start to say, wow, you know, I asked for a project, I got a project, but then I gave them a problem and I got results, then I should keep giving them problems. So you're going to earn that trust over time. Great question.
Thank you so much, Christian. The next question that we have is from Abdul Hanan, and he asks us, what is the role of a product manager when it comes to product adoption?
Oh, it's a great question. It is in some ways part of viability. Remember, there's one thing about value, which is a core of the job, and the other part is viability. Does it work for our business? Can our stakeholders support it? How do we market it? How do we sell it? How do we go to market? It is part of viability. Now, for enterprise companies, B2B companies, kind of many larger companies, there's a role called a product marketing manager. You know, we just wrote a book about it called Loved. It's an important role because these people help us capture the value of getting the product to market, help us communicate that value, help us with the strategy of go-to-market, with the product adoption. So there are some roles in companies that focus heavily on enabling the company to capture the value, enabling the customers to understand the value and adopt the product in some ways. When companies don't have that role, it then falls on the product manager. If you do have that role, you partner with those people to enable that. So that's called a product marketing manager. There's a quote that is like this: marketing is too important to be left to marketing alone. You know, kind of like, you know, the adoption of the product. You don't want to leave these things to chance, right? So the idea here is that you're working collaboratively because a measure of success on our product is not just that we've come up with a solution worth building, but that it's compelling enough for people to switch behavior, to choose it, to pick it. So we need that evidence. We need to show that the product is not just the best solution, but that people love it enough to stop what they are doing and do it. So your role in a small team is part of viability. You are running that in most companies. But in larger enterprise companies with market adoption issues, broad sales force, sales enablement, customer enablement practices. They do have a specific role called a product marketing manager that supports this journey.
Great, great. The next question that we have is it's from Numan Khan, and what he asks us is, how do you handle technical solution disagreements, especially when it comes with, let's say, senior people, so let's say VP product or even VP tech. So how do you go about kind of answering and resolving these kind of disagreements that happen as a product manager?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be technical or solution. Disagreements are very common in our world. One of my favorite quotes from Mark Andreessen is, the most important thing is to know what you don't know. This argument that arrogance and ego have really destroyed the discipline of product management, that humility is the core of the job. I stress this enough because the best product teams I've met, there's this humility around, we don't know. Our job is to know that these are the things we don't know, and then to go gather evidence or to tackle the risk around these things. The reason I bring this up is because there are a couple of dynamics here that could be at play. One, you may not be right. And there's no prize in being right in this case. Your job is to bring evidence, insights that suggest this is the best decision or the best solution to the problem. It's not to argue with those people. It's to get validated learning about those choices. This is what our testing is all about. So if somebody says, I want you to build something this way, and you say, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm a technology person, this is not the right way to build it, this is the best way to build it, you need to bring evidence. And what you do with that is you don't guess. This is what I always tell people. Don't guess, just test. Just test. So you say, oh, so when someone comes to me, you should do this way. You know what I say to anybody that comes to me in product? I say to them, that's a great idea. It doesn't matter what it is. What am I doing? First of all, product organizations need to be the safe place in a company for people to come with ideas. But you see, I call it an idea because I don't want people to think it's direction or instruction. I never believe, unless a senior executive says to me, this is a directive, it is just an idea to me. So I always say, that's a great idea. I say the same thing I said before. I want to make sure we succeed when we do it. So what's the problem we're trying to solve here, and how will we measure success? Once I do that, I now say, great, I am going to come back with some evidence. I'm going to test two different things. This is the solution I had in mind. This is what you say. We're going to bring back evidence through testing and experimentation that this is actually the better choice. It's not your job to argue in meetings with them and create a disagreement. It's your job to bring to your company customer insights and data that validate the decisions we make on what we build. This is the magic of great product management, my friends.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the insight, Christian. I have a personal question, and I think you mentioned it in your talk as well, about product managers aren't effective when they have lack of strategic vision. So as a product manager, when you see that there is lack of strategic vision, or your vision constantly is changing in a couple of weeks or months, how do you sit down with leadership and tell them that this isn't working? And how do you gather that clarity? Because being a senior product manager, I sometimes feel that there are areas where there is, let's say, it's foggy and you don't know where you're going. So how do you have that conversation? How do you kind of get that ball rolling so that you can get that clarity and then you can be on your way to solving those problems?
I want to be clear in some ways that part of the reason, and probably I think the biggest reason, most leaders don't give context is because they don't have context themselves. If you think about the command and control environment, if you went to your boss and said, why are we doing this? And the boss doesn't have a good answer, they can say, because I said so, go do it. You see, they don't have an answer to the context. So I always tell this to product managers, say, look, you cannot just always assume like your leader is bad and stuff, or your leader is mean. They just want to control you. So what I say to them is the same thing I say. I say, look, I think we will do an amazing job at solving this problem if we had a better understanding of why this was a good problem and the important things, because I need, as a product manager, to empower my teams with context. Understanding what we're doing is important. Understanding why we're doing it, why it is important right now, is super important in empowering the team to come up with a good solution. So if your manager doesn't know, I say, look, can we go to a manager hire? Can we go to another? Can we keep escalating this until all of us are on the same page? Because when your manager learns the context, they will give you the context. And in turn, you will give your team the context. So your manager will benefit from learning the vision and the strategy and understanding why. And if it doesn't exist, if nobody has done a good job, you say, look, there are so many things we can do, so many problems we can go. But as a leadership team, I think we will make better decisions if we place bets on the key problems we want to solve in the next 5 years. That's our vision. If we have a good understanding of how, that's our strategy. And we communicate to the teams what the focus is, those objectives. When you state those things out in that way, you start to yield meaningful results. So I'm kind of coaching up. I am not judging up. I am coaching up. You see, I'm not like, you're bad, we need this or not, you're failed at this. No, I explain why we needed to do good work. And I continue to escalate that higher in the company, and I help them create it because we all benefit from it. Good.
Awesome. I had a question. I guess the tone of it is very different from what the questions we had up until now, but I think it's something that you probably experience a lot in your coaching, and I've seen that a lot in my peers and teams as well. It is a result of the fact that, as you said, a lot of product managers are self-taught, right? There's still a huge lack of mentorship opportunities available for product managers. Because that is the case, there's also a serious lack of validation for PMs, right? Which results in a lot of PMs facing imposter syndrome, right? They feel like, oh, I've throughout the past 3 years, 4 years, whatever their years of experience, I've managed to pull the wool over leadership. I've managed to pull the wool over customers, but I'm not really a good product manager. What would you say to people who feel that way? What are techniques or tips you might give to them that they may get over that?
Oh, it's a great question. I want to be clear that a little bit of imposter syndrome is healthy. I still get it all the time. I jump into calls with executives at big companies, at big firms, at popular companies. I'm like, how can I help you? You're awesome, And then they start to talk about your problems. Like, oh, I can help. I talk about knowing what you cannot know, and this idea of humility and ego and the vulnerability that builds trust. People don't care how you know. They just care that you know. You see, they do that by testing you. That's how we know if people know something. If I want to know if you know if 1 + 1 is 2, what do I say to you? Hey, what's 1 + 1? When you tell me it's 2, I now know you know that 1 + 1 is 2. Constantly, people test us in our environment. That's how they judge our competence. Nobody remembers, how did you learn that 1 + 1 is 2? And nobody really cares. They need you to know the answer because that's what they need for you to do a good job. So this is what I tell product managers. You join a company, be the resident idiot. I don't know. Go around and learn. The most powerful and most effective way for creating perceived confidence is by having people teach you. If you taught me something, you now know by the nature of you teaching me that I know that. And even if I'm not really sure about it, because you taught me, you cannot say I'm a bad teacher. You're going to always defend me because you were my teacher. So you go and learn. Go to everybody in the company and say, look, I just joined here to do a good job. I need to know the customer, the business, the data very well. Go dive in and learn. Spend time with them, shadow them, become the expert on it. What that does is you now have many teachers in the company that are going to defend your knowledge and competence, introduce you to other people. It's going to build your confidence, not because you actually know, but because you have relationships with the teacher. Are you with me? You see, it's the same thing in school. We all go into school with imposter syndrome. I have to tell that to my kids all the time. I didn't send you to school because you know. I sent you to school, why? Because you do, to learn. You see? But unfortunately, in a work environment, we lose all of the learning aspect. It's real world. We fire drill. You must perform at the best. What did you teach me? How am I going to perform? You literally, first day we are given a test. So I tell product people, invest heavily in learning. Invest heavily in building trust by people teaching you. It only lasts a small window. People are going to forget they even taught you. They will just know now, you know things. They will invite you to forums. It will build your confidence. It's a great question. The validation of a good product manager comes in the products, the problems you solve out there. For a product leader, your product is the people. So your good product leader should be coaching people, their success in their career, not in the product. That's different. So it's important to know great products come from great product teams. Great product teams are made up of ordinary people, just ordinary people that work well together. Really good. Good questions.
Thank you so much, Christian. That was an amazing and highly educative experience today. On behalf of the product community and product Soch team, thank you so much. I'm sure you have a lot of insights to share, and I have another list of questions that I would like to ask, but due to time constraints, I'd like to end here. Just a quick couple of announcements before we sign off. Our YouTube channel is growing, and if you've missed this session from the start or any other session that we've previously held, you can go to our YouTube channel. And if we already have a great roadmap set ahead with influential product leaders for 2023. So if you haven't already, do go ahead and follow us on LinkedIn as well, so that you can catch the next Sochology sessions and Sochcast, which is our podcast, which will have great product management content. Thank you once again, Christian. I'd like to have you over very soon, but from the product Soch team and me and Seth, thank you once again, everyone, and hope to speak to you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.